The underworld of The Godfather is full of violence, deceit, and betrayal. Don Vito Corleone and later his successor, his son Michael, must battle friend and foe in order to maintain their grip on their power. In the world of gangsters, it is essential to have the best muscle, loyal machines, and animals who act as body armor and weapons for their bosses. These people are the engines of the empire. Without them, the likes of Michael and other mob bosses would be at the mercy of their enemies, and with enemy plots at every turn, some of the qualities required in such characters is unwavering loyalty, cunning intelligence, and the bravery of putting your own life on the line for the sake of the family. Today, I wanted to count down the most effective enforcers from the Godfather films, the men who best protected their bosses and who are most adept at carrying out their orders. Now, with the movies, the lines between the likes of soldier, enforcer, and bodyguard can be blurred, with some characters acting as all three. So it may be that you disagree with even the inclusion of some of these characters, thinking of them instead as maybe contract killers or muscle, but in any case, these guys are pretty much the most prominent men in the movies who had the task of protecting their boss through violence or being sent to carry out hits for their bosses. Let me know what your own countdown looks like and who you think is the best mob enforcer of the Godfather films. And before you do so, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. In 10th place, it's Fabrizio. I mean, this one goes without saying, right? You're not the best enforcer around if you end up betraying the person you're supposed to be protecting, eradicating any reputation and sense of honor you have for a ticket to America. And this was after Michael and Fabrizio developed a kind of brotherly bond. To top it all off, Fabrizio doesn't even manage to kill Michael, but instead takes out his wife, a major no-no in La Cosa Nostra. It's a surprise he wasn't taken out himself by Barzini for the botched hit. It's the killing of Michael's wife, it could be argued, that drove Michael down the dark path he went on, so Fabrizio must take a sizable share of the blame for Michael losing his soul. At number 9, I've gone for Bussetta. Played by a Hungarian sculptor and a character who I've dedicated an entire video to, Bussetta's main claim to fame is that he just looks so badass. There's something deathly sinister about him, an old school no-nonsense stoniness. Brought in from the old country as Michael distrusts his own men, Bussetta accompanies Michael as he travels to the US and Cuba on his business. It's likely Bussetta does not understand English, so he's not privy to the Corleone business, instead hanging around in the back of Michael's meetings in case his presence is required. The reason why he is so low on this list is because, quite simply, aside from looking cool, he doesn't actually do anything. He has one main job, and that's to kill a sick, feeble man who isn't even conscious, and that's while the nurses are all celebrating, and he fails. At number 8, it's Anthony Squigliaro. Known as the Ant and supposedly modelled on Sammy the Bull, Squigliaro is another enforcer who ranks on the lower end of this list for looking more cooler than actually doing anything noteworthy. Reportedly dipping his bullets in cyanide, according to Vincent Mancini, Squigliaro is a rough-looking gangster who looks like a bulldog and works for Joey Zaza. He is the perfect person to have around when you want to say something without actually saying it. Constantly surveying the horizon and sizing people up. Unfortunately for Squigliaro, just like Bussetta, his one main claim to fame is a failure, taking way too long to deal with a hoodlum and failing to recognize it was a distraction tactic, getting blown away in the process, and his boss Joey Zaza following suit shortly after. At number 7, it's Carlo. No, not Carlo, Carlo. This is Michael's other bodyguard when he's in Sicily. Unlike Fabrizio, Carlo was loyal and unassuming. So why is he above the likes of Bussetta and Squigliaro? Well, it's because he continued to serve Don Tomasino for decades after the first film. There might not be another character on this list who serves as long as he does. In fact, I think a lot of people forget this guy is actually in The Godfather Part 3, demanding revenge when Tomasino is taken out by the Mosca of Montelepre. Carlo gets a massive bump in this video because he is the one who is sent to kill Don Lucchese by Don Vincent Corleone. Without any weapons at hand, Carlo improvises and gives us one of the most memorable kills in the series, taking out Lucchese with his own glasses. He would have known that there was very little chance of coming out of that situation alive, and he was killed for it, so clearly he valued his loyalty to Tomasino, and his thirst for vengeance over his own life is what you want from a mobster. My master is dead. Blood calls for blood. I must have revenge, as he says. Others may have found a new employer, but in death, Tommasino was avenged by a character in the trilogy most don't even remember. A true unsung hero. Number 6. Mosca of Montelepre. Now, is this guy an enforcer? Well, he is an assassin, and he's hired to do the bidding of Don Altobello, so I think he does deserve to be on the list, even if he is a bit of a wild card given he's a hired assassin. And if he is on the list, he needs to be high up. Aside from having a name that sounds like he should be a baron in charge of a medieval haunted castle, Mosca was an infamous legend in Sicily who was known to never fail in his assignments. The whole Corleone family were on guard when his name was thrown into the mix. His first attempt to kill Michael is when he dresses as a priest, but he is recognized by Don Tommasino, who he kills in lightning fast fashion. In his second attempt, he infiltrates the opera attended by the Corleone family, having already stashed away a sniper rifle. It showcases his foresight and planning. Even at his advanced age, he takes out 3 Corleone bodyguards with a knife, one of them being an extremely inventive bait and switch where he lifts the dead man with presumably one hand and pretending to be dead at the same time. Imagine what he must have been like in his prime. But the interruptions means he is forced to improvise and attempts to hit Michael outside as he leaves the opera. Mosca gets minus points for failing to kill Michael and instead taking out his daughter, being killed himself in the process. It's difficult to see where exactly he is in relation to Michael, but he is on the steps, so he surely should have been pretty close to him, meaning it should have been a relatively routine hit. Maybe there's something poetic in the most painful death in Michael's life, the punishment for his sins, being delivered by a man dressed as a priest, but Mosca isn't getting the points for poetry when he doesn't get the actual task done. In 5th place, I've gone for Willie Cicci. Being one of the more recognizable faces of Michael Corleone's new regime, Cicci, we can presume, is part of the Corleone family from the ground up. He clearly impresses, being given the ever so important task of taking out Don Carmine Cuneo as part of the 5-family hit at the end of the first film. The trust the top brass have for him is on display when it is made evident he is aware, and very much part, of the plan to trap Tessio after his betrayal, even searching the former legend and presumably having a hand in his execution. When Michael moves to Nevada, Cicci stays behind working for Peter Clemenza and later Frank Pentangeli, becoming his loyal right-hand man. Cicci gives off a sleazy and ultra-cool vibe. There isn't a shadow of animosity between him and Pentangeli. They are both on exactly the same page when it comes to their sentiment towards Michael Corleone and the Rosata brothers. He is fiercely loyal, echoing the things Pentangeli says in the film, and when the shootout occurs after the assassination attempt against Pentangeli, Cicci holds his own in the shootout against the cops and the Rosatos. Now you might say, how can Cicci be so high up on the list when his final involvement in the movies is to betray Michael and to testify in the Senate hearings? Well, you're welcome to disagree, but in a way I feel this actually highlights his loyalty, in a manner of speaking. He was Frank's right-hand man, not Michael's. Frank runs the Corleone crime family. Michael had moved on to bigger and better things, but the guys in the trenches are Frank and Willie. The fact that Cicci also testifies shows he follows his boss all the way to the end, if he even knew Frank was alive. But from his point of view, he would have been livid that Michael refuses to help the Corleones in the war against the Rosata brothers. And on top of that, in his mind, Michael tries to have Frank hit. So Cicci would have felt betrayed, would have had nowhere to go, and so he must have felt he was getting revenge against Michael, revenge which would have been amplified if the feds kept Pentangeli's survival from him. You can check out more on Cicci in my video on what happened to Cicci after the film ended. Number 4, Vincent Mancini. Wild, brutish, and wearing his emotions on his sleeves, Vincent's behavior is crying out for a wise mentor, something he gets in Michael Corleone. All of a sudden, this bastard outsider is taught directly from the man at the top, learning from his intelligence and cunning, whilst possessing the fire and anger his late father had. Vincent initially works under Joey Zaza, who comes to blows with Vincent partly because Zaza's open disdain for Michael and the old ways rubs him the wrong way. After being taken under Michael's wing, Vincent repeatedly shows his worth as a bodyguard and an enforcer to an aging Don who he can see is starting to lose his grip. In spite of his constant outbursts, Vincent is the first to recognize that a hit is about to go down when the commission is taken out, having already become suspicious when Zaza and Don Altobello left the room, saving Michael's life as they escape the flurry of bullets. He also survives an attempt on his own life, taking out the assassins. With Michael in hospital, and with a bit of prodding from Connie, Vincent takes the reins of the family and takes out his old foe Zaza in a well-organized, if not sacrilegious hit, to ensure he does not try to hit Michael again. Sure, he does have his bad points, like the romance with Michael's daughter, but it did end up being useful, with Vincent showing he had also a cunning side to him, successfully infiltrating Don Altobello's camp with Michael's guidance. And let's not forget, he ends his relationship with Mary after he takes over the family business from Michael. A notable kill in his collection is Mosca of Montelepre, and his first act as Don is to order a simultaneous multiple murder reminiscent of Michael's baptism of fire. He ends the trilogy as boss, still presumably violent but wiser and more patient. Vincent gets a few minus points for being difficult to manage, Michael having to watch out for his outbursts as much as he has to watch out for his enemies, but these are traits he learns to control as the third film progresses. According to Coppola, Vincent is supposed to embody traits of all 5 of the Corleone men: Vito's cunning, Michael's ruthlessness, Fredo's sensitivity, Sonny's fiery temper, and Tom Hagen's unquestioned loyalty. In third place, it's Rocco Lampone. Like many of the enforcers on this list, Rocco is usually in the background, rarely seen and heard even less. A veteran of the war, Rocco begins working for the Corleones after coming back to the States, receiving an opportunity to climb up the ranks after the betrayal of Paulie Gatto. Under the tutorship of the experienced Clemenza, who handpicks Rocco as Paulie's replacement, it is he who takes out Paulie, and throughout the film he climbs the ranks, becoming trusted enough to take part in the 5 family hit, ruthlessly taking out Philip Tattaglia and a prostitute. Under the orders of Michael, Rocco builds a secret regime to be used as a contingency, something which the book delves into much further. To put it short, Rocco isn't just a hired gun by the end of the film, but a fully fledged member of Michael's inner circle, being part of key executions of rival family members. He is part of Michael's team that travels to Nevada, being head of security at the Lake Tahoe complex. This is where he makes his first major mistake of the films though, failing to prevent the assassination attempt against Michael and later being unable to apprehend the would-be killers alive. Of course, there is a theory that I've discussed in another video that Rocco actually betrayed the Corleones and was part of the assassination attempt, but that aside, whether he was or wasn't, Rocco redeems himself with the murder of Hyman Roth, a hit which, like Carlo decades later, Rocco would know he had little chance of surviving the hit, and of course, he doesn't. It's probably one of the most difficult hits to pull off, concealing a weapon in a public space like an airport, surrounded by security and pretending to be a journalist. Rocco's failure at Lake Tahoe is most likely why Michael sent him to do the hit in the first place. Either that, or due to the hit's importance, he volunteered, as it's a pretty strange idea to send your number 3 man on a suicide mission, especially when he walks with a limp. Plus, the Senate hearings show that the government knew Rocco works for Michael, so unless he was trying to send a message, it's a pretty weird decision. But there's more on Rocco in the other video. On to the top 2 now, and it was only ever really gonna be 2 people at number 1, wasn't it? It was just a matter of which one comes first. And at this present moment in time, I think Luca Brasi sits comfortably in second place, just ever so slightly being edged out by Neri at number 1, mainly because of Luca's negative traits, not Neri's positive ones. The original bulldog of the Corleone Empire, Luca was essential for Vito, single-handedly ending the olive oil war after going on a killing spree, only ending the rampage after Vito calls him off. Completely fearless, able to operate on his own, and with something of a death wish, Luca, due to his horrifying backstory which I've discussed in another video, is the only man to make even Don Vito nervous. Having already attempted to take his own life, he is given a second lease when he begins working for Vito, who he is unshakably loyal to. As Solozzo knew, taking out Luca Brasi was essential if one wants to make a move against Vito, because the alternative is Luca coming after you. He is definitely the more effective enforcer. It's just his unstableness that makes him a wild card. Even if you're on the same team, you're not safe. It's alleged he killed a Corleone soldier simply for making the family look bad. It's difficult to envisage him being as loyal to Michael as he was to Vito, and the entire underworld was afraid of him, leading to the question as to whether Michael would even want him around. Both he and Neri are technically enforcers, but the novel describes both men as special, that they ascend the label of family enforcer to become something more. But with Brasi, unless he's put on the shelf, bought out for special occasions, he doesn't really come off as someone who would last a long time in the Corleone family, as he'd get himself killed in some violent confrontation somewhere down the line. This is something Neri has over Luca, who is still working with Michael decades later in the third film. Al is the replacement for Luca, a former police officer who was kicked off the force and spared a prison sentence when the Corleone stepped in. This made Neri a grateful and loyal bodyguard for Michael, eventually becoming chief lieutenant. Neri's mild look is highly deceptive and hides a violent nature, which he channels for his kills, which includes the important and highly difficult execution of Don Barzini on the steps at the climax of the first movie. Al and Michael are of similar age. They have both a disillusionment of the American criminal justice system, and both have similar roots, being Sicilian and serving in the Marines and the police force respectively. There is a commonality there, strengthened by Neri's loyalty and competence. Kay, Fredo, Tessio, Carlo, Pentangeli, Cicci, and maybe even Rocco all betrayed Michael one way or another. And Neri was the last man standing from the early days of Michael's reign, who remained loyal, even surpassing Michael's reign and carrying out a hit for his successor, Vincent. In the book, it is he who takes out Mo Green. In a deleted scene, he shakes down a rival hotel owner, and he has the private, dark task of taking out Fredo at the lake. Al is a much more comfortable person to have around than Luca. He can be used for stealth missions, blend in unassumed in the background, make independent decisions and snap into action when required, giving him a blend of all the best traits needed in a bodyguard and enforcer. So there you have it. What do you make of my list, and what does your own ranking look like? Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.